artist to create cross-disciplinary poetry experiences. His poems have been set to classical music and contemporary dance in American universities. He has participated in the 2022 PEN Emergency World Voices Congress of Writers at the United Nations headquarters, New York. He conducts performance poetry workshops for young adults and has read at many educational institutions and literary festivals across India. His works have been featured in many literary journals. He was a resident artist at Bazaar Confluence. His poems have been translated into many languages. He was a resident poet at 2022 Spring International Writing Program, the University of Iowa. He curates the DLF Gurugram Poetry Festival and the literary sessions for the Arunachal Arts and Literary Festival. This is his fourth collection of poetry.
Thank you, and thank you for the bearing with the long introduction.
So we're going to launch the book. We usually don't do launches with some huge fanfare and chief guests, but since Madhu has been associated with us for many moons, and we are all here for the cause of poetry, I'm going to ask Madhu to give a copy of his book to one of our most beloved poets, Shivagami, and who has been involved with the cause of poetry and with us at Prakriti for also many moons. So over to you, Madhu.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Srini, are you getting us?
Yeah.
Wait, thank you.
My going home, are you getting it?
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is yours.
I bought my copy.
But this is a special copy for you. Yeah, I know. This is how we poets support each other, by buying each other's books, and that's all we intend to do.
So as some of you may have noticed that Madhu lives his poetry, also quite literally wears it, as you can see on his mundu. And we were just talking before the event of doing a line of clothing with poetry, and that's another thought. But we'll start off by just saying that the book is divided into 3 portions. It's under the headings of purpose, pathway, and praise. A lot of the poetry that Madhu wrote in this book happened in and around and during COVID. So I'm going to ask him to read a few poems from the different sections and maybe engage him in conversation about what were some of the things that inspired those poems. So if you just want to tell us a sort of general mood of how the work in this book came to be, in this collection came to be.
Yeah, usually word of thanks is usually in the end, but let me put it out right. Thank you for coming in this Diwali shopping season to a round of poetry reading and for being present, and thanks to Prakriti Foundation, as Ranveer said, who has been advocate of the arts and poetry all along, because also it's relevant to the book because the book comes from a lot of gratitude, and this is where I think we were all in COVID, a sense of gratitude that you were safe in some sense, but also a sense of loss, a sense of collective loss in a sense. So these were the many spaces, so definitely I want to start with a word of thanks. And to be very, so my partner is quite introverted, she's like, don't introduce me. And this is the first time she has been to any of my launches across India. So I'm really happy to have her here today. And so this book was just released in Zero in Arunachal, but she was not there. So this festival, I don't know if you know of the Zero Music Festival. So I was telling Meera that you should be there at least once.
Yeah.
So I wanted to begin with a word of gratitude, and then I'll go on to reading a few poems. The title poem I'll be performing happily with someone I just met, Bharat, and I love impromptu spontaneous collaborations, so thanks to Bharat for being here. So I'll read the title poem in the end. Let me begin by a poem on kindness, and we'll take it from there. 14. Kindness. A butterfly flies into my room. I switch off the fan. I feel at some point it may fly through the rotating fan blades and hurt itself. It may not, but if it does, I cannot save it then. There have been times when I have been a butterfly trapped in concrete homes of others, and some stranger has made sure that I don't get my wings torn. I remember and make sure I do the same.
So before Madhu chooses and reads his next poem, it's also interesting what background Madhu comes from, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong. He's from the Tanjore area in terms of his family. Grew up and was raised in North India and is now settled with his partner in the Northeast. So it's really Nehruvian, secular India, and a lot of his work and poetry is informed by him being from these different worlds and cultures. Specifically in that poem, Jnana and Bhakti and some others also, I felt that it all comes from different legacies of the self that you have in some way.
Yeah, to add to that, thanks for bringing that up, but it's my phone, so I didn't bring my second book. It's called Stick No Bills. So there's a poem called Biodata, and I've never tried submitting for a job interview, that poem, but I'm sure it will get me the job because it does talk about Tanjore Maharashtrian being born and brought up in Calcutta, having rasam and sambar every day with begun or aloo bhaja. And then responding to my Avva in Kannada, like she would speak to me in Kannada and I would respond back in Marathi and those kind of things. And then, work for most of my life in Delhi and public health in Chhattisgarh and remote areas with indigenous populations of India. And then was taking a workshop somewhere in Arunachal in the State Central Library. Then we got in touch and now settled in Northeast. And falling in love with a Galo girl from Arunachal itself. So yeah, all these put together definitely.
So tell us, because I see that there are some poems on references to Galo culture, and so maybe you can share some of that and tell us a bit more about it.
Okay, we are moving on to a bit of family poems, and these are also in a way fun poems because there was not much to do with in the lockdown other than get in some sort of loggerheads with your partners and have fun. And so this is called Love Swear. And so Pokurkhao would mean eat ass. Like, so it would like mean, eat shit, eat ass. So something like that. So in this I mentioned a festival called Mopin. It's called Mopin it's on page 46. Mopin is an agriculture festival celebrated by the Galo tribe of Arunachal Pradesh. Itu is the rice flour or paste they make and they apply on each other during this festival. So that's about it. So love swear. My wife says it all begins with sweet words, messages, sharing music, talking about shared likings in very sexy English or sophisticated aap wali Hindi or Urdu. Dreaming about sunsets on unmapped beaches, borrowing sandcastles from Neruda, Ghalib or Baudelaire, wishing they were cool breeze outside each other's window on warm summer nights, escaping into the moonlight with their phones to their hearts and closing their eyes at dawn, secretly yearning to apply udil on each other on Mopin. But it's not love until you fight over something stupid and yell, Pokurkhao.
There's another one in the third part of your book called Fireplace.
Yeah.
Or
Fireplace.
I think that might also be a sister poem to this.
Yes, and also with this, with this thread, let me continue another, and then I'll move on to Fireplace. It's the page before. It's called Begum Akhtar. So I don't know how many of you have heard Begum Akhtar. I mean, you might have heard, but I know some people are ardent fans of Begum Akhtar. I don't know if you've heard this song. "Hai mohabbat tere anjam pe rona aaya." So the line, I don't know if you follow Hindi again. So it says, "Hey Mohabbat, oh love, I'm crying over the result of what you have brought to me." I mean, in some crude translation, that's what it would stand to. That, oh love, what result have you born out of this whole act of love? I mean, the process. So yeah, but it's a lovely song. If you have never heard it, do hear it. And so it's called Begum Akhtar. She asks me for a head massage. In my head, I'm thinking of the promised pending return massages. I tell her to give me a second and pick up the phone. She asks me if I'm switching on the timer. Nah, just some music to go with, I say, and play. "Hai mohabbat tere anjam pe rona aaya." Yeah. Okay. Fireplace is definitely another poem. It's on 87. Fireplace. This was published in some erotic anthology of which was again published by Red River. Paresh and so Sri Vidya and Paresh's anthology. So Fireplace. My drink is drying. This is the last of the firewood. My fire is dying. You're here, there, a little everywhere. Wherever you are, you make me feel good. Love gives birth out of nowhere. The litter erodes into a world of lesser wrongs. When no one uses oceanic metaphor for your eyes, they are what they are. A pair of fire tongs to keep my fireplace warm. We lie down on a misplaced merry-go-round in the middle of some woods, watch the forest light and sky spin. My fingers surf your skin as we contemplate the eccentricity of love. So, rightly said, I don't know how you got whiff of it, I would say, because this poem could be from anywhere, but it does, the fireplace itself is a huge connotation to the Northeast culture and specifically Arunachali culture because it's quite cold during the winter months and even during the summer months, as weird as it might sound, there is in traditional homes, which is still maximum number of homes in remote areas, there is a fire in the middle of the fireplace. And when I share this, or whenever I share this with someone, people do ask, so wouldn't the house catch on fire? And really it does. So there are many times that there's a fire accident, but the whole idea is to have the fire and cook it there, and also cure meat there, and all processes, and you sleep around it, and the things like that. So the kitchen is the house and things like that.
Also during COVID was a period when you spent more time with your family. There are poems about being a father, spending time with your young son. Why don't you share some of those as well with us?
Sure.
And also if you want to talk about some of those experiences of time and how it sort of stretched and how you had to keep a young, a child who's full of energy, busy versus yourself.
Apartment.
Yeah.
I and I'm a partner were constantly jostling around this idea of parenting, and there was so much going around I don't know if they are called COVID kids, but they are almost the COVID lockdown kids in a way, you know, these whole 2 years, and they are obsessed with culinary things because they saw nothing else outside homes. Like my little one is obsessed with cooker, and literally he has cooker in all colors. I don't know if any of you have in purple or red, but I do. And so he has all colors. So there were things that you had to put up with such behavior because you knew that there was nothing much to give to kids. Thankfully, we were in the Northeast, so we could take off to hikes a lot, pretty much 20 kilometers from home, or so that, or even 15, yeah. But so we went on a lot of hikes. But I was really looking at mainland India as still the term exists from Northeast sense, that the idea of mainland India and the mega urban cities. That parenting was becoming such, people were obsessed over parenting. That was a feeling I had. So I thought, yeah, so I did write a few on parenting, and let me just read out and let's see where it goes. And also, fatherhood is something I didn't, of course, being a father is a natural thing and everything, but I think, I don't know if you would also, and most of the parents here would agree, that it's totally not changes things in a sense of family, but also it changes a lot around you. If you're an artist, if you're a teacher, if you are a homemaker, if you are a weaver, doesn't matter. There is some form of change which you wouldn't, and I didn't kind of, so it's just
something shifts inside.
Something shifts inside, and you wouldn't realize if people kept telling you it would, and so it is something, I don't know. So, fatherhood. Months before I became a father, French sculptor Jacques told me, everything will change. It's quite unsayable how. My art will change magically. It seemed there was barely any logic to such foreign theory. But since the day I held my boy, there was a lingering aroma of freshly powdered cardamom in sweetened milk. My arms are much stronger than I knew. And even if only by a bit, I understand my father better. But yeah, so my obsession with that kind of thing, because I kept, both of us were like, I think what illogical people in today's time, and you wouldn't believe this because we went to, she has never been to Dakshin Chitra, so I took her, and so we just let our kid play, and we are happy whenever he's playing in mud, whenever he's around rivers and things like that. So he was literally for hours there, and then there was some old ladies working around. They were like constantly, "Ape, yaar in the time le velada vidra." So she was going around of, in these times, who allows their children to play in mud and dirt like this? Like your head is covered in mud, and we're like, yeah, he'll go home and have a bath, and he does this very often. And she's like, wow. And so, because we saw parenting like that transform, and we tried to build up a shield that we wouldn't do that, and we don't want him, not like I don't appreciate the point of mathematical geniuses, but he will discover someday, and it's okay. So we try to practice that instead of just telling it out loud in public, and so yeah, so whatever. So this is called Future, and this was when he was a year old. Our boy is a year old now. He is yet to learn how to high-five, handshake, clap, wave goodbye, respond to strangers, or smile on video calls, unlike some babies his age. I don't want to rush him. He's a baby, not instant coffee. Let them run wild in the labyrinth of childhood. No European articles on cognitive development for babies inspire us. Nor do we follow, in quotes, 11 ways to make your baby smart and intelligent. My wife coerced me to join a gentle parenting group on Facebook, but I copped out when someone asked, what is the best position to hold your baby to sleep? Instincts are science. Instincts are science. Be present. Hold on to the freedom of wild parenting. Play,
is the vital building block of bonobo relationships, and they continue to play as adults, unlike us. Bonobo, the bonobo animal, like orangutan or chimpanzee. Yeah. Play is the vital building block of bonobo relationships, and they continue to play as adults, unlike us. There is more to learn from bonobo documentaries. The boy feels like an old soul. He comes to Bhimsen Joshi, Ustad Nusrat, and Bob Dylan. He floats like a leaf when Alamgir sings Pulli Kobis. Amai bhashaili re, amai dhubaili re, okul doriyar buji kul nai re. He's peaceful on long road trips or on the banks of the swollen Siang. I don't know the mix of flowers and thorns he may bring to bloom. I'm not much of a pruner, having come from perennial wild grass. All I know is after a long day of parental chores, I would like to sit and have a beer with him someday. The age ahead asks for physical distance. The age ahead asks for physical distance as if there is not enough separation between us now.
We also spent, and I see that there are a few poems in this collection on, obviously, I'm assuming, a practice of yoga. So there are a series of what I would call yoga-inspired poems, and they're quite perhaps tongue-in-cheek. So if you want to just share with us about the practice and what, did you always do it, or did you come to it during lockdown, and how did these poems come to be?
I have a degree in yoga, and I'm sure that's collecting dust ages back. But I think with just my partner and I inspired each other to keep doing some physical activity in lockdown, like most of us. That was nothing special, but the special thing was about like writing poems around it, because I was like, okay, fine, yeah, I might as well. And my publisher, he's quite again like intuitive, ingenious in making his books. He makes it pretty artsy, so he likes to put photographs of things, and I also love to put photographs of things, because it's, for me, it's also a sense of journaling. Like I remember last time having a conversation on those lines, that about art a lot. We had a lot of conversation around art, and one of my favorite artists is Robert Rauschenberg, and so he said that an artist's time is to record, an artist's job is to record his time in history in some way, and I feel that is the most important thing. So I like to keep it as very, my poems are pretty anthropological, very journaling, like if you're speaking right now, there might be a poem on it 10 years down the line, something like that. So yeah, so this is the poem called, I don't know if you know, I don't know Uttana Asana, so this is the asana. So where you just put your head, bury your head in your knees. So the poem is something like this. The young seahorses are released in a microplastic hole. The satin tongue can't hold the days from turning into a sinkhole. Mangroves drown for oil towns. From the cloud-scented sky falls alien flies. Love ordered from an online shopping site arrives in a bubble wrap. The world is barely held to my chest by a safety pin. I nimbly look away and bury my head in my knees. That's
I think is big
Yeah.
on how to do a headstand.
Yeah, and also especially I don't know how to put it, but she also she was practicing yoga, and then she took to Surya Kriya and all that, and she found a lot of help in Isha, because we all tend to do things, and constantly I was thinking that when I visited that place, that I wish the Adi Yogi was going around in mats like this, carrying mats. I see everyone carrying yoga mats. I mean, there is grass around, there's mud around. Can we just settle down for the earth itself and the 5 elements of earth, and not like really
So, for me, it was like I just want to defy the idea that if you wanted to do yoga, it should be in a band and hot pants and this and that. I mean, the whole idea itself, so
The
it was
commercialization.
the commercialization of it. And so, yeah, literally. So, for me, I was doing in a jeans and t shirt on a sandbank in some waterfall where I was releasing the book again. So, there it goes. How to do a headstand on a sandbank without getting sand in your hair. Wear all you like, leave your ego, it'll weigh you down like a joyless headstone. Place your book firmly on the ground, better if it's hardbound. Curl like a seed, let the head be rooted in poetry. Let your feet rising slowly towards light teach you to stand like a tree, bear leaves and fruits. Be forever giving and forgiving.
I don't know how many of you were here, but sometime around the same time last year, we also read poetry from Madhu's earlier book, which came out called Being Non-Essential. And one of the poems in that book has gone completely viral across the world and continues to be. There are different ways in which different countries, cultures, and people have adapted it. So I would like for Madhu to perhaps share the process and then perhaps read the poem. And the poem is, and I'll let him read it and then we can talk about it again, how important art is in difficult times and how it keeps the human spirit going and why it is so important.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, this book, I was telling him in many senses, is like part two of that book because the theme remains the same. We are in a post-COVID world, and though we are not wearing masks all the time, and some of us are, and whatever we feel right, but yeah, the effects remain and things remain unchanged in many ways. And I don't know how it happened, but I was a homemaker that time, and I took up job just this December with a tribal health collaborative with the Ministry of Health and things like that. So I was a homemaker that time. I was driving my partner to her office. She's a government doctor, and so while I was doing that, there was this whole idea of essential and non-essential that came out. This was June 16th, July 16th, I think 2020. And the idea of essential and non-essential, and many I think typically a Singaporean newspaper came out with the fact that artists was 71% of the people rated artists as non-essential, and that was pretty much fine. And I was, as usual, I couldn't care less. But most of my artist friends across the board, across the world, they were like, "Oh, art is essential, art is essential, art is essential," blah blah blah. And I was like, "Oh, I'm tired of this conversation. Like, I don't want to assert like." There's only so much assertion you can do. And so for me, I was coming from the idea that, and the fact that you are talking about is just that how for every artist, every successful art or artwork, like let's say Van Gogh's sunflowers or self-portrait of somebody, how that is a cross-sectional point. You have no control over it. You just make that piece happen. Like you make all your other pieces happen on the face of earth. And that is the one piece the world celebrates. Even for Faiz, if you see Faiz's poem, Hum dekhenge. It's a daily wording thing. Hum dekhenge, lazim hai ki hum bhi dekhenge. इसमें poetry क्या है, कहाँ है? ये हम पूछ सकते हैं और इस पे हम, it's like it's a two-edged sword. इसमें poetry कहाँ है? Where is the poetry? Is it a question or the answer itself? Because such poems are so daily worded, everyday worded, that could be a sense of success of the poem also, but also the fact that it was made at a point of history when, strangely, 60 odd countries needed it together. Okay, fine. So you are just in of how the piece travels, and it's no your piece, and it's just out there, and it's like an anthem, and then somebody will make something out of it. And so it was, so that's how the poem ends. So I was telling her that, I mean, I don't know how many of you felt your spine this morning. Spine, none of us, but we have it, and it works, and that's why we are here. And so art is something like that. You don't wake up thinking, oh my God, I have a spine, I need to celebrate this. No, but you have a spine, and that's how you can move. So I think of art something like that. A tree is not going to assert itself, a river is not going to assert itself. So what is the point of asserting? I going around asserting, art is essential, art. Okay, art is not essential, fine. You go around by saying that. So that was the head of the poem. Let me read the poem and then we will speak about it. Artist. I don't mind being the non-essential. Even a child takes its mother for granted. It does not run back to its mother until it is hurt. Nobody first thinks of water when they arrive at an exquisite dinner party until they are choking. I don't mind being the non-essential, knowing you will come looking when things are broken and nothing else works. Art is non-essential until it is not. Art is non-essential until it is not. So, to say that this 10-line poem just was like it was quoted in the South African Parliament budget speech for artists. And unlike ours, we were speaking on this, that unlike ours, most countries have a budget for artists. So that's why UK's government budgets were cut. And so many people started using this poem to advocate to their political councillors and things like that, don't cut art. And that was very strange for me. Nothing like that ever in history has happened to me. I could only hope that could happen to Rumi or Fairs or somebody like that. And so last week, just 11th, 9th of October, around 30 odd artists came together to celebrate the poem in Finland. And it was composed by I think a composer from Netherlands, Merlin Angadgor, and the group called Nice Gore of Islaya. They performed the whole thing in a huge venue. And so it keeps, there are papers on it in Kenya, Nairobi, University of Nairobi. It's included, it's like everywhere, and people have painted it on their home walls. And something that I cannot decipher, and I don't know the process to it. I cannot recreate it myself. I can safely say, because I can safely say I cannot recreate it, because it's a time and space of history when something is needed, and I think that is the power of art, that we keep making it again and again and again. I mean, I was telling him that I could have paid lakhs of rupees and I'm sure I couldn't have got it into a parliamentary budget speech. So there's no way that we can make some things like that happen. And for that poem, I'm sure there are thousands of poems that have not reached many people. So I think that's what the magic of art is, that scenic moment where it's stolen from you and taken in every page and defines in history.
Can I read two of your poems, which I think
Sure.
go as a follow-through on that?
Sure.
It's called Countless. How do I respond to, how many poems have you written? Maybe not even one, if you haven't read any yet. Perhaps innumerable, if you read even one of them many, many times over and never kept count. I thought that went well with the fact that this poem is all across the world. And then there's another one next to it called Scroll. Scrolling aimlessly, I found a post. Adopt a poet. For a moment, I was happy. For a moment, there was hope. Before I reread, adopt a pet. Oh, okay, that too.
So thanks to foundations like you that keep the art going in many ways, and all foundations who are philanthropic in that way. Because you tend to hope like that. And but I think I've discovered it lately that there are decent grants from, grants in other places that we can approach and write. And so yeah, I mean, so maybe in India we need to do more towards the arts, and then maybe, so because people, I mean, these kind of questions, that's why I write, so that, I mean, it's a documented history. I mean, people keep asking poets that how many poems have you written? I mean, maybe if you've never read one, I'm sure I've not written any. I mean, there's no relevance to you, in context to you, in your, there's none of the poems that I've written. So I feel this needs to be responded in such a, I mean, Billy Collins has a very funny line in this sense that my poems are undermined by the use of the word accessible. So just because your poems are accessible, it doesn't mean that they will not be used in history. They will be. So for me, that is the point, that I want to respond to all such conversations that come to me. Like conversations like poetry doesn't sell, but my dear, what have you done for it to sell? You have done nothing, literally nothing. You keep publishing Rumi and Gulzar for the big publishers. This is speaking to the big publishers in many ways. That what have you done? While I, along with my friend, have worked hard, and with foundations like this, we have come to them and we have tried to always put it out. And then, because I was talking to Anna Adarsh, thanks to the event organized by Prakriti, I was speaking to students at Anna Adarsh. I said, how do you see poetry? And they said, feelings, emotions. And I'm like, nobody cares about that every morning, right? Like your mom, you want to have a sandwich, your mom gives dash about it. Like she's like, okay, have dosa and go, that's what is made. Nobody, even your own, don't care about feelings and things in everyday life. And I think that's why it's chucked into the bin, because you're maybe putting arts along with that. No, I put poetry along with SOP, standard operating, not standard operating procedure, but statement of purpose, or your interviews, job interviews. And I'm telling students that you will stand out if you talk about an aubergine sky instead of a blue sky, because it's a mundane conversation if you're coming to me and telling me a blue sky and everybody, 60 other people are telling me blue sky. And if you give me a butterscotch sky, I'll be more surprised, and that will come through poetry. And that piece of imagination, that work, will come when you're working your brains through poetry, reading more poetry. You don't have to read all poetry, you don't have to read the Victorian poetry. I mean, whatever poetry comes to you, whatever you feel.
So you do a lot of these workshops with students across the country. Can you tell us a little bit about those experiences? And how do you find the response in young people? So like, if you're a poet and you're engaging with a bunch of young minds who write poetry amateurly or in their own way, what is the feedback you're receiving over time in the different workshops that you've done? Do people want to write poetry? Do they seek guidance? Are they lost? Do they think poetry is boring because you have to learn it for exams? What is happening out there?
Typically, continuing with what I was saying, is the big five publishers are not publishing poetry, but they're publishing fiction. And they're saying, go out with coffee and such author. Why can't they go out on coffee with Madhu or someone else? And why can't they go out on coffee with Shikandu? Oh, I mean, what have you done for poetry is the question. So my point of start is a pre-workshop, maybe a pre-workshop workshop, you know. I mean, that why is poetry even relevant? It's not that you need to write a letter to your loved one. That's not the point of poetry at all. Or just when you broke up, have a write. That's not, I mean, for me, it's an act of everyday. Rhythm, rhyme, when I'm speaking to you. I was even telling them you would speak better to your partner. And, you know, things that you would use quotes. Like there was a system of like, idea of using quotes in Urdu quotes all the time while speaking Hindi and all these things. Tirukurals are on buses, for God's sake. I mean, poetry is definitely much more. So when I'm doing these workshops, I'm also trying to tell them, like recently I did on 25th September to 28th, I did a workshop in a remote college in Zero called St. Claret's, and there were just 8 students to 10 students there. And you wouldn't do a 3-day workshop with 10 of them. So you can't, it's impossible to make them understand poetry and tell them how to condition them to write a poem. So I started doing chain poems. So it's okay, like we can create a poem right now. If you give me a line, you give me a line. And it's nothing new in history, it has been done in history. So chain poems are a big thing in history. So if you all give me a line and just write, you don't have to even try writing to, if you say that I had okra for lunch, and she says that my necklace is blue. I had okra for lunch, my necklace is blue, and let's take a walk at times. So things, it would just come along. You just have to make some conjunctions, and it would be a beautiful poem. It's not, okra and necklace is not disconnected in any which way. It's more poetic than not. So, so you see, for me, those are so. I mean, there are activities. Some days for 15 minutes we are just, and there's also a lot of things on nothingness which we spoke. I don't want to repeat that, but then act of nothingness, which we do a lot. Just sit around, don't do much. Just observe things around you, because every time you enter a room, there might be something new you find. So these, I mean, there's a thing called, I tell them to shout no marks. So then we go around and say that, helping your mom in the kitchen, no marks for that, because everything is related to marks in their life. I remember very precisely saying that there are two parts of life. The younger part is called bring marks, get marks, and the other part is called get money. So that's pretty much life, how it can be easily divided. So fun to divide life into parts. So I was like, first forget that part, that everything, I think there is a poem, I don't even want to call it a mature poem. It's a poem long written, I think when I was 21 or something. It goes something like this, if I remember correctly, that they would not give me a degree. They would not give me a degree for choosing people as my subject. I have people for tea, I have people for coffee, I have people for serenity. I have people because I have a moment to pause, to lick off their finger warm caramel sauce, homemade, hugs, heaps of honest smiles, carefree tears, and happy whiles. I am in debt. I am in debt because I have people on my side, and they thought I was unqualified.
Beautiful.
So, something like that. It's very important for them to understand nobody cares about marks after you leave that institution.
You spoke earlier about the challenges of the big publishing houses not doing, yet you've had 3 books. Shikhandan is here, you have worked with this wonderful publishing house called Red River. Would you like to share a bit about them and their journey and how they are promoting poetry? Because I think it's very important that there are what I would call these efforts which may not be on the sort of larger radar, but they continue to make and move the field and are a very important part of it. So perhaps your views on that or your experiences.
Red River, when I and Divya got together, so I was running something called Poetry Couture, I still do, but now I just collaborate with college festivals or festivals. So earlier, we used to do a lot of open mics, till open mics became popular, and then we let it go, thinking that somebody else needs to take charge of it, I can't keep doing it all my life. So when we started 2013, not just I, but many people in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, so I was in Delhi, Calcutta and all these places. So we started creating all these cafe poetry spaces, and then Divya met me, and he always wanted to be a publisher and also a writer, of course, but publisher mainly. And he was like, Madhu, I want to publish a book, and we just had done some poetry event at Jazz House or something in Delhi, so a jazz club. So he was literally like trying to convince me that you're waiting for a big publisher to come in and publish you, and you also don't want to go in for the self-publishing. So maybe we could work a thing out, and you with your going around and speaking could help me with that. And that's how Red River came about. And I was fondly telling him a while ago that, it's like a Shivas from where the Ganges emerges. So it's a nice feeling that, because when people say, who are you published by? And I proudly say Red River, because now he has 150 titles and poets spanning across the world. And this is not much time ago, it's just 5 years ago probably, 2016. And so when it was I Write in Print and Red River about to happen, we launched the first book right here, and with this background and Chair's face this way. And there was Arunachal Subramaniam and K.K. Daruwala and all these lovely poets and Sudeep Sen. And so that's where we launched. So it's a thing, we keep pushing it, we keep promoting it. And because you need to understand that an artist, Derek Walcott also gave away his own books. There's no shame in, it's like any other thing, it's a piece of art you give away. So I think much more needs to be done for indie poetry publishers in India, and it will come along. And there's also Hawapal Publishing that's doing some good work. So yeah, and people like Shikhandan are also published from Red River. So it's a necessary movement and it's taking shape, and I'm happy that you are a part of it.
Thank you. Earlier, both Madhu and Bharat, who's a musician and actor, have worked on putting together some collaborative sharing, which I'm going to let them talk about it and let them share with us as I move away. Please, Bharat.
Thank you, Ranveer. So I love collaborating over poetry, contemporary dance, and music, and so all kinds. It's not just like even breaking the barriers of poetry and transcending. So I'm really happy Vishnu Bharat is here with us today, and so we have not even, like, it's an impromptu performance, and we have just talked about it for 5 minutes. I remember Uri Gurvich, while he's setting up, I'm just going to give a background that I remember Uri Gurvich, jazz band here from, I think, so he was based in New York. So he was, so we just spoke for 5-10 odd minutes, and we did a piece at the City of Asylum Festival in Pittsburgh. And my partner was looking at it and she was like, oh, there's a nice collaboration. Did you practice for days? I was like, no, 15 minutes. And so the idea that there is already a rhythm in what he's doing and what I'm doing, I think should put in together some form of thing. And trust me, we have never played before together. We have never met before. So, and this is as spontaneous can be. This is a messy poetry about to happen. Yeah, you go with pedestrian first. This poem is called Pedestrian, and so it's about high art and low art, and there is no high art and low art in my dictionary, so that's what. Pedestrian. Pedestrian, its aesthetic lies hooch drunk beneath the cold skin of hunger. It's a hand-taught puller working at an iron foundry, drinking from a glass of sattu from a roadside thela. It's a sweaty, soaked, shabby banyan. It is the numb fingers of a measly paid old woman, tearing coil from cotton husk, or an enslaved child, weaving a dreamless carpet. If you ever choose to walk, if you ever choose to walk with my poetry, my friend, you too are pedestrian. Now we'll title the poem. It's called Going Home. Again, it's from the daily trope of Gopi Gorgo. If I'm told to go big or go home, if I'm told to go big or go home, I'll choose home. Is there an end to how big you can go? Why do they make it sound like going home is losing? have found a home. You have already won. If you have found a home, you have already won. A couple of other short poems before we come to the end of this. This is a mental health poem, typically a COVID thing, like where we stand and things. Very short. Where are you today? Are you standing in a circle? Are you looking inward or outward? Are you standing outside the circle and looking inside? Are you standing inside the circle and looking outside? Are you somewhere away from the circle? It often happens that a drop of coffee runs down the side of a cup. It often happens that a drop of coffee runs down the side of a cup. Oh, this new normal. I'm tired of this word new normal. So, more of a, in a sense of angst, I guess, in the poem. Because I remember that book also begins with the quote from Arunachal Roy that whatever, it's a portal. I mean, the new world is a portal. And I thought if it's a portal to somewhere more, there's more injustice, more inequity than not, because, yeah. This is the new normal. Whatever lies within the camera frame is formal. Rest is the same as the old normal, but with new problems. To get to the same old morsel. The systems that were abnormal are still abnormal. Like most people barely getting bare minimum wages. Or illegal hunting of narwhal. This is the new portal, sanitized. A little older than the old portal. This is the new moral, sanitized, a bit lower than the old moral. Please give me a few new terms. Please give me a few more new terms. For my terminology, in case life becomes more unbelievable, I'll replace it with the old ones. Thank you. Thank you, Madhu, for this lovely collaborating.
Do one more extempore one which you haven't rehearsed.
Yes, tempore one. Yeah, sure, why not? Another.
Just to challenge yourselves and the universe.
Yeah, why not? To end this.
Like an audience request.
Yes.
Yes.
Audience request.
Okay. Purpose. Harvest. Okay. This you have never been to Arunachal Pradesh.
Not possible, yes.
Can you think of in your head something from Arunachal Pradesh, like if you were there, like take a moment. So this is the poem. You want to look at it? Because if I read this. So there's a poem called Arunachal Pradesh. Arunachal Pradesh is 50 years old this year, and this poem was presented to the speaker and the CM, and it's called 50 Years of Arunachal. If you have never been to the Northeast, you're welcome. If you're passing by, there's always a small guest room at our apartment, in our apartment. You can stay if you want, and just let us know a few days ago. And all of you are welcome. Please do travel the Northeast without the tourist ties, and it's lovely. This describes that this comes in the last part called praise, and the poem begins with this, like a praise for Arunachal. That's a good instrument to do with.
Use them.
The sun is a monk that brings the first floating lamp to the divine scriptures of Tawa Monastery. The palms of the shining pagoda open for the world to wear robes of light, where wise sages arrive for oneness with the blue waters of Parashuram Kund, where the hymns from Doni Polo Dire and churches make the magnificent valleys fertile with love, where rare families of rhododendrons find the earth, great hornbills find their home, orchids find their lyric, Mithuns find their stories in ancient folktale, and tigers find brotherhood in a nature-loving culture, where heroic tribes sing under unbolted skies at the bonfire of fraternity and harmony, where rivers awaken from Himalayan snow, bring orange orchards and pristine meadows, where forest reserves conserve animals and butterflies. The heart turns into a cane bridge, one end of which is forever tied across the meditating lakes of Anini, and sways like a mountain flower in silent breeze. And a new heart which is born out of visiting the land shares an endless border with the unfading memories. Arunachal, 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 how beautifully you have turned gold
thank you, Bharat. Thank you, Madhu. Please buy copies of the book. They would be here if you want to have further conversation. And thank you all for coming.